It is time to take Kentucky football seriously if you haven't already. My goodness, they are climbing the recruiting rankings. They're winning football games. They're going to bowl games. They are finishing in the top 25 most seasons. And here we are, the 2022 recruiting class, the best ever. We got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football. Please join him over there with everybody else that is so good to us at Last Word on College Football. Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been obviously it's been a long week. Down this part of the world with storms and everything, and then the TV station I work for, we did a relief telethon on Tuesday. So far, we've raised I think over $4 million, which is just incredible. And then yesterday we get the signing day, and we had been talking that Coach Stoops and Vince Marrow over the years, they've been kind of building and building and building. The thing I'm finishing right now for Last Word, like on a recap, was talking about the fact that you go back to 2013 when Stoops took over, and Kentucky was fighting the quote mid majors for like the 1 and 2 star recruits, and now you fast forward to this year. And honestly, they weren't winning a lot of those battles, but that's but you fast forward to this year, and now you have they're 11th by 247 Sports, I think 4th in the SEC, best class in school history, and honestly going up against some of the quote big boys of college football, and not only holding their own, but getting a lot of these guys to come here. So it's just been it's just a great testament to what Coach Stoops and the staff has done with this program over the last 9 years. As you said, it's just, kind of it's been a steady climb, and now they're right there, second New Year's Bowl, Citrus Bowl in 4 years. And there's just a lot of excitement around this program.
Wow, this class with 19 signed is the pinnacle of the recruiting efforts. This has obviously been, as you just mentioned, this has been a 7 or 8 year process of improving the reputation out there, the brand on the field, developing players, showing better players that, hey, you can come to Kentucky and win and move on to the NFL. Of course, the draft selections in the NFL draft have increased as well. All of it working hand in hand and capitalizing on the other. So I'm sure Mark Stoops has been asked this, not just this season, but as this has continued to build, how he's doing it, why he's making Kentucky a different football brand than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
I think part of it is just, people are buying into the program now. It's preaching that hard work, that, dedication. And then you see these guys, you see like Josh Allen, who came to Kentucky as a 2-star player. One of UK's biggest, slogans is recruit and develop. And you think about Josh Allen, he was a 2-star player when he came here, and he left. Now he's the 7th, he was the 7th pick in the NFL draft. They've had 6 defensive backs taken in the last 2 years in the draft. As I said, as the on the field product gets better, and the Cats are winning the consistently 8-9 games, and going to the bowl games, and then also sending these players to the draft, prospective players see that and say, hey, well, wait a minute, this isn't just a basketball school anymore. This is a football. We want to come here and be part of that, and that's kind of what he's, what they've been preaching, and plus the fact, you think about it, Stoops is now what I think the second longest tenured coach here in the SEC, behind Saban. So the stability has been a big thing too, because you see all these other schools where every other year you've got a turnover, a new coach, new everything, and he offers that stability, and he just recently signed an extension, I believe, just through the 2027 season. But I think that whole recruit and develop and just the stability around the program are two of the biggest factors that are very enticing to players.
So again, as Kevin mentioned, 4th in the SEC, number 11 in the country, according to 247 Sports, with 19 signed. Do we expect any other movement either the rest of this week or going into February?
Well, the biggest thing, we say 19, technically they have 20 players, but Keontae Goodwin, I don't know if you followed that story at all. Yesterday, he's the number one player in the state of Indiana, I think second overall tackle in the country. He committed to Kentucky back in April, and then he, over the last 8 months, took visits, every other weekend. It seemed like he was at a different school. He was at Alabama, A&M was on him really hard, and then, Michigan State. And in the end, it came down to Kentucky and Michigan State. And yesterday, he was supposed to announce at 8 a.m., and then he sent out something that said, I'm not ready. And so it became, I'm going to announce at like 3 p.m., and then 3 p.m. became 4 p.m., and then 4 p.m. became, 5:30 p.m. And then finally, because everybody's starting like, okay, the thought around here was that the longer this drug on, the more it favored Michigan State, because, he had visited them just this past weekend, had been up there, but he came in and said, no, I'm sticking with my commitment. I'm going to Kentucky, but he hasn't signed yet. So that's still, the big, the asterisk at the end of the, end of the line here. But he's, I don't know of anybody else right now that they're interested in. Now, I know they've been very active in the transfer portal. They got two guys, from the portal yesterday, Tayshawn Manning, who's defensive lineman who was at Auburn, and then Tavion Robinson, who was very good wide receiver at Virginia Tech. Because Kentucky, they lose Josh Ali this year, and of course, whether he goes or not, everybody expects Wan'Dale Robinson to at least, put his name out there and just get some feelers on the NFL draft. So if he were to leave, then, Kentucky has a really, really talented group of players now. And you look at that class that's coming in, they got some really, really good receivers. There's just not a lot of experience there. So that's why, getting Robinson, I think, was big, a guy who's had some good seasons at Virginia Tech. So, but obviously, all of us in the Big Blue Nation hope that Robinson decides, to come back for his senior year. And if he does, it's going to be, it could be a lot of fun again next year. So now that, as the running comment was, now that Kentucky's learned how to throw the ball this year. So,
sure, yeah, with a receiver looking at about 100 catches this year, that's right. Unheard of in recent Kentucky football. And then looking at Tavion Robinson, as you mentioned, he played a whole lot of football at Virginia Tech. I'm looking at, 35 games played, caught 31, 38, and 44 passes. So he's a guy that's been productive in the ACC. Obviously, you've got a known commodity there in picking him up. So that's key. Kevin, when you look at this recruiting class, we could obviously just start at the top of the board and say those are the guys that are key, that are the highest ranked. But as you look it over and based on your resources, looking at video, all the things that you do, who are some of the guys that you're a little bit more intrigued with?
Well, as you said, you can start at the top of the list, and we just talked about the receivers, Barry and Brown from Nashville. He's, according to 247 Sports, he's the highest rated receiver commit ever at Kentucky. Right behind him, you have Dane Key, whose father Dante played for the Cats back in the mid-'90s. He's from Frederick Douglass High School here in Lexington. He's the third or fourth player now. They've built a nice pipeline. Frederick Douglass has become, it's a new school here, but they've become really quickly one of the best schools in the state. And so Kentucky's got a nice pipeline going. I think he's like the fourth player now they have, and they already have somebody coming in for next year. Out of the another guy that they're really, really excited about is Dion Walker out of Michigan, kind of following along that pipeline. Speaking of the pipeline, you have Marquand McCall, and then you have Justin Rogers, who both come from Detroit down here to Lexington. He's another guy that Kentucky beat Michigan State out for. Michigan State really, really wanted him. And, of course, Steve Clinkscale, who was secondaries coach here, went and joined Mel Tucker's staff this past year. And so they've been, and Clinkscale had recruited a lot of these guys here, but, was trying to get them away to Michigan State. And that was another big recruiting win. He's a guy that the coaching staff is just really, really excited about. Because Kentucky does lose some guys up front this year, and they're going to need they're gonna need some help. They think he's a guy who can come in. He's listed 6'6", 350, sixth best player in Michigan. He's a guy they're really excited about. And then another going on down the line, if obviously we've learned with Josh Allen, obviously stars don't always mean everything. Another guy they're really excited about is Josh Gaddis. He's a tight end from Cincinnati. Archbishop from Moeller. Kentucky's had a lot of success bringing in guys from Cincinnati. Vince Marrow, as the tight ends coach, he's a Vince Marrow guy. He's another guy kind of under the radar that I think they're really excited about, and as somebody who thinks can do big things here in the school.
Yeah, more so than any other team in the SEC. I don't have numbers to back this up, but I think it's pretty easy to eyeball it, and much of it has to do with geography. Kentucky going north more so than anybody in the SEC, and with 5 of 19, so that's more than a quarter of the class coming from Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. There you go.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So the Ohio to Kentucky pipeline's been well documented. Now they've got one in Michigan. And talking about Tyrese Fearbury, he was a guy I think committed to Penn State originally, and then backed out of that commitment, and it came down between Kentucky and Pitt, and Kentucky was able to get him. He's another like an edge rusher. They see him, potentially as a Josh Allen, maybe Josh Paschal kind of guy like from this year's team. He's another guy that they're really excited about. But one thing that is interesting, I thought, Kentucky hasn't had a lot of success in the state of Tennessee, but they managed to go in this year's class and get 3 out of the top 12 players in the state of Tennessee to come to Kentucky. We talked about Berrien Brown, and then Destin and Keaton Wade, who are a couple of obviously twins. One plays on offense, one's a big-time linebacker who's was named to the All-American Bowl, which will air on NBC. Those are 2 guys that Kentucky had been on for a long time, and then Josh Heupel in Tennessee were making a big push to try to get them, but they ultimately stayed with Kentucky. And then another one, just throwing out names. To my knowledge, this is a first. They have their first player ever from the state of Delaware. So branching out. So the comment was it's the first player from the first state or whatever. But I'm probably going to butcher his name. I apologize. It's Tamawa Duraje, who's a defensive lineman from Delaware. He's another one of those under the radar kind of guys. He's ranked as the second best player in Delaware, and Brad White, the defensive coordinator, who reportedly just turned down a similar job at LSU. Brian Kelly was apparently really high on him, trying to get him to come join his staff down there. He's another guy, like maybe an under the radar guy, but another one of those guys who they think can come in like from day one and possibly push for some playing time. So while they're keeping that northern pipeline going now, you're seeing them branch out in places like Tennessee, where a place they've not had a whole lot of success. And in years past, Kentucky really got a lot of players from Florida, but with this year's class, you don't really see there's not a whole lot of that with this year's class. Like Florida and Georgia, you've seen those in the past. And then the other part is they've done a really good job of keeping the home state players. The quality of football in Kentucky right now, high school football, is probably as good as it's ever been, at least, in the last decade. And Kentucky's done a really good job. 4 of the players are from Kentucky, led by Dane Key, and then Grant Bingham, who's offensive lineman from Paintsville, and then Elijah Reed, defensive back from Louisville, and then Jackson, I'm going to mess his name up, Jackson Smith, from who's a kicker from Boyle County. They think he's, obviously, kickers don't get, you don't see any 5-star kickers out there unless it's, maybe like, Ray Guy or somebody. But he's a guy who they think can come in and be their kicker of the future. You go back many years ago, Taylor Begley was also from Boyle County, and he was, a great kicker for Kentucky, probably about a decade, maybe even more so ago. But yeah, keeping the good players in the state here, and then, like I said, and slowly branching out to other places. So like I said, as we said in the beginning, the fact that Kentucky, players, see what Kentucky's doing and, thinking, hey, I want to be a part of this. So as I said in the beginning, it's a very exciting time right now for Kentucky fans, especially heading into, January 1st. So.
UK with another strong season at 9-3, taking on Iowa, 10-2 team that lost the Big Ten championship game on New Year's Day in the Citrus Bowl, and this recruiting class followed up. It's all looking good. If they can keep Wan'Dale Robinson from the NFL draft, things will really be looking good. Anybody else out there that's on the fence in regards to an announcement for the NFL draft?
Well, we've heard talk. Chris Rodriguez, had a really, really, great year. Even Will Levis, there's been rumblings that, he may put some feelers out and just see, I can't imagine either one of them, leaving, not wanting to come back. But, stranger things have happened. Those are like the only three guys that you're hearing that I've heard a lot about. Robinson, which is obvious, and then, possibly Levis and Rodriguez. So
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. Check it out. Kevin, I got the word from Tony that your bowl projections were just ridiculous, like in the 90 some percentile. So Kevin does bowl projections every week during the college football season. And his last edition was like 90 some percent accurate. You need to become some kind of bracketologist type. When it comes
I don't. Okay, I'll go with it. I don't know if it was that strong, but hey, if Tony said it, then that's the law. So it's I got I did. Last year was honestly everything last year was a crapshoot anyway. Last year didn't work out very well as far as projections because who knew from day to day games are being canceled and everything. Sure. But yeah, no,
you had a pulse. You could make a bowl game. South Carolina got invited to a bowl game. They were 2-8.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, that's right. And, but then think about this year. We had more teams with 6 wins than we had bowls. So what did they do? They just created another bowl. Just which I think is great.
You should have projected that, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I called it. It didn't have a game. It didn't have a title. But I started because I have 2 kids, are 14 and 11, and they're still they love Scooby Doo. So I just called it the Scooby Doo Mystery Bowl because I didn't know what else to I think somebody else called it the Mystery Meat Bowl. Somebody else. But anyway, no, it's something, I know you talked to Jason. We've talked about this before, I think. You talk to Jason Ray all the time with Oklahoma. He does such a great job. He started doing bowl projections for us several years ago, and then he decided he didn't want to do it. And I always thought this would be kind of fun. And so I was like, hey, I want to take the ball and run with it, so to speak. And they were like, sure, go for it. And, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I think basically last word, we always like to say we're a small but growing. Get in on the ground floor. Watch it grow or whatever. Because I think we had yesterday. Tony said it was the 3rd highest page views or whatever for the site in history. And usually that's signing day because we have like 25 to 30 writers and everybody's covering. Everybody's covering signing day. And so you get, all those different, we all pick 4 or 5 players and do profiles on. And then once they sign, you publish them and then, everybody gets to check them out. So, but yeah, no, I'm going to say that. And then next year I want to get 2% of them right. So, but
we'll worry about that next year.
Yeah, we'll worry about that next year. Absolutely. So.
That's right. I'm trying to think. Well, last year I picked an Alabama-Ohio State national championship game before the season started, so I had to remind people of that all season.
Right.
And off season after it came true. And now I picked Alabama, Georgia to play in the national championship game this year before the season started. So if things break right in the semifinal, you can bet, Kevin, just like you just mentioned, I'm gonna live on that and remind people that the entire off season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the scroll going across the bottom line there with your, weekly picks, you kind of, you crushed it this year. So, I was somewhere, I was kind of proud of myself. I was, I wasn't near the top, but, I I wasn't at the bottom, so I was, I still have to work on the against, the spread. Like picking them straight up, I'm pretty good at. I still need to work on,
It's tough.
the point spreads and stuff. So because it's college football. Who knows what's going to happen from week to week. So, but that's what we all love about it. And going back like to the bowl games, there's 42 games. I will probably watch at least part of all of them, if not just because
I always try.
Yeah, because it's creeping up on us. They actually, I think the first games are tomorrow.
That's right.
So the Bahamas Bowl. So and then another fun thing with Last Word is that all of us, pick other bowl games to cover that don't involve, your team. And so I've got I did the LA Bowl, which, of course is being sponsored by Jimmy Kimmel, which is, airing tomorrow night. Saturday night. And so that's, I always think those are fun because you learn about teams that you don't normally cover, like where you cover, you hit like as many of the, teams as possible. So you probably know a lot more about Oregon State and Utah State than I did, but you get in and you do the research and it's like, and you find out about, some of the best players, and it's a lot of fun doing that. So that's one of the more fun things about working for Last Word.
What Kevin's alluding to with the bowl predictions and the college football predictions week to week is that myself and about 15 to 20 media members provide our predictions on Patreon. So join us on Patreon. You can get the link in the description section of the video, or just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and we will have our predictions on all the bowl games right there on Patreon. And we won't mention who finished first during the regular season because it's a whole new season now, Kevin.
Right.
We're going to wipe the records clean.
That's okay. You if you win, you might as well brag about it. So, it's okay. So.
Well, you never know what's going to happen next year. So you got to hang on to the victory while you can.
Exactly. Just like you said with the bowl projections. So that's right. I can talk about Kevin, it for this year.
Appreciate you being here as always.
Yes, sir, Mark. Thank you very much for having me again. As always, it's great to come on and talk with you. And I hope you guys, everybody has a great holiday season. And we'll be talking soon, hopefully with the Citrus Bowl maybe. So.